Are you already recording? You didn't tell me you started recording.
Yes, sorry, yeah, we are recording, but we're not talking. Like we won't use this part.
No,
unless it's really good.
yeah.
Unless it's really juicy, then we'll use it. Hello, everyone. I'm Freida Whales, and today I'm so excited to be speaking with one of my personal drag inspirations. The world was first introduced to this comedy queen on season 7 of RuPaul's Drag Race. Since then, she has continued to showcase her brilliant blend of theater, positivity, and campy comedy in many different ways. An absolute treasure and one of the hardest working drag queens around. In the tank, there's always time for Kasha Davis. Welcome, Mrs. Kasha Davis.
Yay! Welcome, Mrs. Kasha Davis. That's the way I pronounced it when I got eliminated on RuPaul's Drag Race season 7, which was so long ago. Who cares?
It's crazy how many seasons have happened since then. Like, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but then it's like, when you look at it, it's like, oh my gosh, it was quite a while ago.
It was a while ago. I mean, we're auditioning season 14 in the US now. You multiple seasons in Canada, multiple seasons in the UK, Australia, Holland. I mean, it's spreading like crabs. Drag queens are everywhere. And it's the kind of virus that we don't want a vaccine for, you know?
Right?
It's like let it spread.
Everyone get those crabs.
Well, you know, it's interesting. And you also said that it was a comedy. I think I'm a very serious actress. Yeah. It's all comedy. To me, it's all just fun.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. Why take it so seriously? It's just dress up.
I mean, it really is. You know, and it's a great way to truly express a part of me that I, you know, was suppressing for so many years. And that's what I love about it. And it's a great way to just, you know, just have fun. And as I get older, you know, it's like it becomes more fun.
What is the origin of your drag name?
So first pet, first street, Kasha, angry white poodle in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And Davis is just a boring old street that I grew up on. So I said Kasha Davis. And then the misses came in when I was working at a club and they had the strippers backstage. And, you know, the other queens were like checking them out and touching them and this, that. And I'm like, I don't know where he's been. And I'm like, no, that's not for me. And I'm married and that. And so as they were introducing everybody, they would say Miss Aggie Dune, Miss Darien Lake, Miss Pandora Box. And then he goes, when he got to me, he was like, and ladies and gentlemen, the married lady, Mrs. Kasha Davis. And I loved it. You know, and it became, you know, I emulate my mom and my grandmother in drag and those women that I grew up with that were these confident, over the top, colorful, over painted women. And I just always wanted to be them and wanted to be like them. And so then that's where, you know, the whole thing came from. So from there, here we are today.
Your mom and grandma were quite makeup lovers themselves.
Oh, Italian divas. My mom she was an Avon district sales manager. She had a very competitive Avon sales program going. And then my grandmother was a performer in the vaudeville days, and she was a whistler. And she would stand up and she would host the shows. And I used to see her old photos and I'd be like, I want to be her. I don't know how. And she had dark coiffed hair. And so very much my grandmother and mother, both of them Italian divas.
Are you a good whistler as well?
Absolutely not, but I can blow. I don't know what it was. I mean, nobody in our whole family could whistle, but somehow she was highlighted for it. And we used to not believe her, but then she would show us the contracts that she had saved and she performed at Radio City. I mean, it was a thing. You know, but vaudeville was sort of like what we do with drag stages, you know? It was that kind of energy.
Yeah. Do you have a memory that you could share from one of your first drag performances?
Well, the first one. So I reached out to the owner of the club and I said, I'd like to perform. And they were like, come on down on Sunday. I was like, whoop. So I think I had like a week.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Davis had this black flip wig that he bought for Wonder Woman that he was for Halloween, and I was Cruella de Vil maybe, and horrible. And yeah, and he said, I said, can I borrow your wig? And he's like, well, I was kind of saving it, you know. I was like, oh, come on. And so I had that wig, and then I found a Mother of the Bride dress, and I did I Enjoy Being a Girl, which is from Flower Drum Song, a Broadway show. And then I did, and it goes, I'm a girl, and by me, that's only great. I am proud that my silhouette is curvy. And it was, you know, that camp and Mother of the Bride. And then I had Lime Jello Marshmallow Cottage Cheese Surprise. was the other song. It was very
That's a
housewife.
song?
Yeah.
I think you brought a dessert.
No, it's yeah, and she's like, ladies, the minutes will soon be read today. The garden club and weaving class, I'm sure, have much to say. But next week is our culture night, our biggest, best event, and I've just made a dish for it. You'll all find heaven sent. It's my lime jello marshmallow cottage cheese surprise. So
I might need to steal that number. That sounds hilariously fun.
Well, so I, stole that number from Miss Richfield 1981, who's my drag inspiration to do drag, because, at the club here, we had Pandora, who was, young and comedy and sexy, and Aggie, who was this diva, and Darian, who was bawdy sexual, and then the club kid, Ambrosia Salad, and Tina Turner impersonator, Naomi Kane. And I was like, I don't see myself doing those things. But when I saw Miss Richfield and she did that song, I was like, oh, there's a story, there's a character. And that's when I was like, okay, I can do that. And so we saw her in P-Town, and I got inspired to call, and that was one of the songs she did. So I did do that song, but I lip sync it. Now I sing them both live.
So in 2021, you're celebrating over 5 years of being sober. You've been very open about the journey to sobriety and how it has been and still is. Why is that so important to you?
Well, it's the truth. I think that, in 2021, that if you are positioning yourself online, the way that people will be attracted to you is that if you tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what that truth is, it's the truth. And I have had lower days. And one of those things that I'll do is I'll post on a lower day, I'll post something to try to lift somebody else up.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing is trying to lift myself up in that moment as well. But I think that it's important to share the stories for people to understand that they're not alone, because we all think that we're so unique in our tragic situation or our circumstances we're the only ones going through it. But if we can see an example of somebody else going through something and see their path, while it might not be the exact path I would take or anybody else would take, it's a path, and it's a path of health and happiness and acceptance. And that is what I necessarily didn't have when I was growing up. And, you had to make it look like everything was perfect on the inside, no matter what it felt like on the outside, no matter what it felt like on the inside. And so, again, that's why I like the, housewife who's showing you that she's not perfect. And, there's no reason to be ashamed of our, little nicks and our little tears and our little things that make us who we are, because nobody on this planet in this moment is in this perfect state that we think that they're in. It doesn't matter how people project themselves on runways or whatever. Everyone is going through something. And so my battle happened to have been anesthetizing with alcohol. And I think that, it's important to share those experiences with the hope that maybe somebody else may say, hey, I can be a performer or whatever and be sober too. I do get a lot of messages of appreciation and asking for some guidance. And there are some things I can do to help, and other things I can direct people towards, community organizations and different things like that, or just, their doctor or whatever. But, I am proud of that. And it's taken a while to be that honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it really important to show that, like, you can be like a nightlife entertainer and still not drink. Like, I never really had like a problem with it, but I just don't drink because I don't enjoy it. I don't like losing control. And a lot of people have come to me saying, like, it's kind of nice to see someone that's in control on stage. Like, they're not like by the end of the night, they're not sloppy with the microphone and just like, whoa, and just like kind of keeping things neat and tidy.
Yeah. Well, we always think it's funny when you're drinking like I did. I always thought everybody else was as drunk as I was.
Yeah, they get at the same level.
Yeah. Or I thought, oh gosh, they think I'm so funny right now, and they may have been laughing at me or feeling uncomfortable. So it's just great to have the clarity and the ability to just be present. And I was worried wondering like, well, who is Mrs. Kasha Davis without alcohol? And she's better.
Yeah. Well, especially it'd be hard to get away from that tagline because your tagline was "There's always time for a cocktail," right? So it kind of tied it all together. And now you're like, "Oh, I'm sober now." Always
There's always
kindness,
time for kindness,
right?
you know, it's not taking off like the cocktail phrase did, but it's the reality. Now,
Yeah.
there's always time for a cocktail is my catchphrase, and I'm proud of it, and I'll still say it. And I used to say, well, you know, there's always time, meaning you can always have one.
Yeah.
In your hand. And then I when I first got sober, I was like, oh, well, you know, like you get it. There's always time. Like you don't have to have it now. Nobody wants to hear that. And so my job as a nightclub performer sometimes is to encourage people to have a good time. It's not my responsibility or my job to question or judge what anybody else is doing. Certainly, I didn't expect anybody to do that when I was drinking. So it's still a celebration of life and to just let go and have fun. And certainly for many and most people, there's nothing wrong with having a little extra fun with alcohol. So I'm not one of these people that just because I'm sober doesn't mean I think that everybody else should be. You know, that's an individual diagnosis and choice.
Yeah. And it's kind of nice too, because then you can kind of show like, hey, yeah, you can drink, but kind of drink responsibly, almost like in that kind of nice motherly way.
At least make sure you got a ride.
Yeah. Can we dive into a little bit about the process of making the Workhorse documentary?
Of course.
What was that like?
Well, I'll tell you, I had the email and phone calls from Angela Washko, who is a professor at Carnegie Mellon. Mm-hmm. And she reached out and she said she would like to tell my story. And she felt that it was not enough of my story was told on RuPaul's Drag Race. And I am the person who answers my emails. I'm the person who answers my messages on Instagram and Twitter and Faceplace and all that. And, you know, I don't have, Mr. Davis and I are a team. He may be the one who notices it, but we're going to answer it together. And so I was flattered. I thought, oh, isn't this sweet? And at first, admittedly, I thought, oh, goodness, it's a professor, so it's a project, you know, great. Then as we met, I realized it was more than that. And then she was just fascinated. She was willing to do anything. She traveled to Australia. She traveled to New York City, to LA, Pittsburgh, Rochester. She filmed and filmed and filmed. And she, you know, was just so interested in not just my story, but the community, my sisters and peers, and then, you know, she was just documenting everything. So it's a couple year process, and I'm like, when are you ever going to release this damn thing? And what, you know, so I don't understand the documentary process. And she kept saying, understand, I'm telling your story. You are just being you, and it's not your project, so back off, you know, because I was kind of used to whatever we do, Mr. Davis and I roll it out. So it's none of my, it was none of, and it's still to this day, I'm sitting back going like, oh my gosh, this is so incredible. I'm receiving such wonderful responses to the viewing of the first film festival premiere at Slam Dance. And then I said, oh goodness, is this over? And she's like, no, this is a 15-month process. And our hopes are to sell to film festivals all around the world, but as well as, you know, maybe World of Wonder or Netflix or whatever. Do people really want to hear this story? Is my first reaction. And apparently they do. So I'm very grateful.
What was something you learned about yourself while watching the Workhorse documentary?
It's tough to watch it.
Is it?
It's tough to watch it. It's very emotional for me. I feel like when I watch the documentary, I feel like I'm watching one of those like end of life celebration videos that they play at the funeral. You know, and I'm like, no. And so I'm glad that, you know, essentially at the end, it sort of says the best is yet to come, or, you know,
it's not over yet.
I'm just getting started, you know. I'm glad that that is said. Oh gosh, life goes fast.
It does.
It just goes so fast. And while I thought this was so long ago, it was just feeling like yesterday. And I think that there's nothing, I mean, really, when the day when you say to yourself, I don't think I want to wear a corset, put it on. the day you say, nobody will notice if I don't wear nails, put the nails on. Because, yeah, paint, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. However you are in your drag, be all in. Because when I look back at some of the video, I'm like, ooh, that was a choice.
Yeah.
And it was a choice at the moment. And I was like, looking at those things, I'm hypercritical of myself.
Every drag queen is, really.
Yeah. And so that is what it is. But it's okay to be in the world and be learning as I go along too. I'm not finished. So of course it's not like this perfect, place yet. And I'm okay with that.
And obviously we're both storytime queens. How did you get into that?
Again, I saw the story times happening in San Francisco, New York City. And it was something that I said, I love the idea that they're providing something for their communities that was not available when I was a child. I think that as we grow in life and if we're a public figure and you think to yourself, like, how can I provide something that wasn't available before? Because when I was a kid, people like Elton John and Barry Manilow and Liberace and, they were all straight. Nobody was out. And if they were gay, they were considered light and loafers, crazy, drunk, whatever.
Yeah, they have some sort of mental illness.
Yeah, there was no positive role model. And so I love kids. And, my dream in life was to get married and have a family, period. When I first came out, because there were no examples of gay families, I don't know why, but like back then, just the idea of adoption was like, no.
Well, and I always say this when I got interviewed during my story time kind of fame, like, they're like, well, why do you do this? I'm like, well, it was like, the only characters on TV that were gay was like, oh, that weird uncle down the street, like, don't trick or treat at his house. Like, he might be weird, like, or you can't be left alone with that uncle kind of thing, like that weird guy.
Yeah. And it's like smashing those stereotypes. Yeah, but then two, I began to work. First, I did 2 story times at a library, and we had the protesters. And I was like, oh my God, it's kids, people. Like, the parents are aware. It's not like we're surprising them. And then I moved to a theater. And that is where it really took off. A Blackfriars Theater here in Rochester, New York. And the director, who has kids, and his business partner, who also has kids, we sat down and we were like, okay, if we have protesters, what are we going to say? Because they come to you and say you have an agenda. You're pushing your gay agenda, and you're going to go talk about being gay. And like, if those things come up, we will address those things. But our mission is, if you happen to see somebody who's different, treat them with kindness.
Accepting everyone, right?
Yeah, right. And so that encompasses everything. How could you have a problem with that? If how many kids get bullied because they wear glasses? It doesn't matter. So if they ask the question, then it's addressed. My favorite interview about story time, somebody said to me, so, she thought she was being so smart. And with her, like, smart meaning like sassy with her question. And she was like, so Mrs. Kasha Davis, why aren't you explaining to the kids the process of getting into drag and why you're in drag? And I said, because they never asked the question.
That's not what they're here for.
They're not asking that question. They're here because this is Mrs. Kasha Davis. She lives at the theater. She likes sparkly dresses, and she likes to read books.
Right?
It's not complicated. You know what I mean? They're not the ones concerned with it.
Why is Barney a dinosaur?
Right.
What? Like,
absolutely. And when they came, a little boy once came up to me who was older than the normal audience member and said, "You're not really a girl." And I said, "You figured it out." We did a high five, and then he helped me the rest of the day. He was like, Mrs. Kasha Davis was honest with me. That's all they're looking for. And if they want to come up and ask a question, we answer the question. So it's not complicated. It's kindness.
Your dream growing up was obviously to be a performer, and I would say you've definitely achieved that dream. How important is that lesson to pass on through your story times to go after your dreams?
Oh, it's so important. We are told, I was told, that I had to do something that was realistic. And it was a way of protecting me so that I wouldn't, be set up for a difficult life of failure and or of not making money or whatever. I don't know. Being realistic.
That struggling artist kind of life.
Yeah. And I remember specifically my father saying stuff. How many people do you know that are a star? And I'd be like, well, I don't know. I don't know anybody. You know what I mean? Like, what is that question? And I kept squashing what I loved. When I knew in my heart, all I knew was I wanted to be on stage. I certainly didn't think it was drag, but I just wanted to be on stage. And so in my story time, I asked the kids, what will you be when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
Because, little kids, they will be a penguin. They will be a unicorn. They will be, it doesn't have, I'm going to be a unicorn. Excellent. Right. All of that, I believe, is important to encourage, because it then might lend them to another way of creating something in their life. That light might be shining on me illustrating, being an artist, and they love to draw unicorns. Who knows? But the fact of the matter is, it's their dream, and they're allowed to have it. And we want to encourage them, because what happens when we suppress those dreams is that we find ourselves depressed.
Yeah, regretting it later in life.
There's light that's not being shined. My reasoning for making it a full-time commitment was when my mother was ill in a hospital once, and she held my hand and she said, "What have I done with my life?" I was like, I am not going to say that ever.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm starting the changes. I don't know what those changes were at the moment, but I left that hospital room like, that is not going to be me. And I knew, I was struggling to come out, and I was out at the time, but, that was a struggle. And then I was like, okay, that's out of the way. But now, I watched my sister travel all around the world as a professional dancer, and I was envious. I didn't want to be a dancer per se. I danced, but I was just like, I am not doing what I love. I'm not every day I go to work, I'm like, I like my job, and I have a tendency to find the good in everything, but I was like, this is not what I love.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky to have a supportive husband to make that transition. But my point is, it's so important to encourage kids to follow their dreams. Keep that light, that dream alive inside.
Is the dream one day to have a Mrs. Kasha Davis children's show?
Oh my goodness, yes. So we're in the process right now of having conversations with some streaming networks
Mm-hmm.
for a show called Imagination Station.
Yes.
And it'd be hosted by Mrs. Kasha Davis. And, I would say it would be similar to the campiness and the colorful atmosphere of a Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
But then the sincerity and the honesty of Mr. Rogers.
I was just going to say, it'd be a nice little Mr. Rogers feel.
Well, yeah, I think it's really important to have a team of writers that says, oh, Black Lives Matter is happening in the world. Mm-hmm. Let's not just put on a show that's just going, that's fun and important to get kids' attention, but let's quiet down and talk about it.
Yeah, actually teach something during it.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't have to be the entire episode of, seriousness or whatever.
Yeah, you got to mix it in.
Yeah, mix in the honesty, the honesty about what is happening in the world. Because I know you remember, and I certainly remember, whatever was happening in my house, in the world, I knew that there was something happening. I just didn't necessarily, I wasn't a part of it. I wasn't being included in the conversation. As a child, I'd sit there and be like, there's stress, there's nerves, there's anger, there's strife, but you're just a child, you don't understand. Well, no, I do know something's wrong. You don't get brought to the table to figure out the budget, but you know what I mean? Like, we talk about it.
Yeah, be honest.
Honest, it's this new fangled, idea to be honest with kids.
Right.
Who knew? But, I think, that's the goal. That is the goal. So yes, there will be a Imagination Station. I feel great about it. And one way or another, it's going to come to fruition.
Well, hopefully you have a fish tank big enough to fit me so I can stop by for a swim sometime.
Yeah.
Because you're a pro and we're new at doing interview series, is there any tips you could give us to help us raise the level of this tank water?
No, I think what you're doing is fantastic. I have not ventured into the podcast world or into the interview kind of world, but I think what you do by reaching out and being persistent and saying, hey, I'd really like you, assumptive, I'd really like you to be a guest. I'd really appreciate that. And I think that is important, because if somebody comes and approaches you and is like, it'll be my dream to have you someday, maybe, if you're ever, it's sort of not confident. You confidently said, this is what I would like. When are we going to do it? And I responded to that. So I think you're doing great.
Awesome. Well, that's two famous queens now that have called me persistent.
Yeah. Well, here's the famous Mr. Davis right now.
Yes, perfect. Hello. So now we have Mr. Davis here. You've obviously become a major part of the Mrs. Kasha Davis brand. What has that experience been like for you?
Oh, it's been a ride. I mean, I'm certainly more than happy to be in the background running the camera, the lights, but it's also a huge amount of fun to meet fans and really get to interact them, before COVID.
Yeah.
And to think it all started because you shared that wig.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Well, it would have been just a one wig wonder if it didn't get shared. So it went on to fame. So
yeah, I don't know that it would have been a one wig wonder. We probably would have done some fun things around the house. But Mr. Davis, I always like to say, like, we're such a team, and I could never do any of this without him. And we have so much fun doing stuff. And sometimes it's like we're not the best working team. Like, we'll both have an idea and be like, want to, get a little frustrated because we both have the end result in mind. And we're both thinking about dinner that's upstairs or Max that's got to go for a walk. But it's truly teamwork. And there's nobody I'd rather be on the road with, because, like, if he's willing and able to take the time off, it's fun to travel because we get to meet people and see new places together.
And so you guys are obviously like the best pair ever, especially in Drag Race history. And I heard that you both love to sing. Do you have a favorite song that you perform together?
Well, we did Cocktail together. That was.
Could you give us a little snippet of it?
Oh gosh. I mean, it's mostly the cocktail section, but I don't know. Cocktail, cocktail, cocktail. Why not have a cocktail? Cocktail, 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 baby. You can always have a cocktail. Ooh, gin. Oh my God. Yeah. But Mr. Davis, now, he was a lead singer in a band for years.
Oh.
And a country band, multiple country bands. And when we first started dating, I didn't know what flooding the basement was until I realized afterwards when Ginger explained to me. But I would go on dates with him, and we would go to karaoke, and he would sing The Bluest Eyes in Texas, and I would be and the dance, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'd be all like melting in the chair. I did not sing. No, we started this conversation about singing. Yeah. He's a good singer, but I was like, I'm not good enough there. Well, he'll never go on another date with me.
So you had to put a wig on first, then it was okay.
Yeah. Well, and he's great because he'll be like, did you want to hit that note? Or how do you want to go around? I'm like, wow. Okay, Mr. Davis.
I thought you were meaning more like a read. Like, were you trying to hit that note?
Yeah, no, he can be shady in a fun way.
And actually, this is perfect while you're both here. I was wondering, for our last request, could you both do your best whale call for me?
I don't know how a whale calls.
Ooh.
There we go.
Grab me that right there. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see. I think a whale. Hello. Hi. I'm calling. No. Is that what it is? Did they go like, what's your name?
Earthy, like, moany grunt.
Oh, like that. Yeah.
There you go. That would be like a nice baleen whale. You could also go a little higher if you want to be a toothed whale.
How does your whale call go?
Usually it's a little more sexy. Depends on the audience. So it's more like a.
Oh my God, I love it. It makes me think of what's her name, Ellen DeGeneres, when she was.
I speak.
Yeah. Usually there's the half the audience does the Dory thing and then the other half does like a Free Willy thing. So
I like the Dory thing.
Yeah.
Well, it was nice to be here today.
Well, thank you so much for coming today. Where can people find you online?
Oh, well, you just look up, you Google Mrs. Kasha Davis, or you can find me on Instasnatch or Twitter or Faceplace. And now he's got me on TikTok.
TikTok and YouTube.
TikTok is like, I'm like, why are these kids talking to a clock? He figures it out. I have no idea. I'm just there.
We used to watch clocks sing when I was younger in like the
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast, right?
Well, yeah, when you sing, we all watch the clock.
Well, thank you so much, Mrs. Kasha Davis, for stopping by for a swim. I hope you enjoyed the waters.
Oh my gosh, it was fantastic.
Sorry about that warm spot I peed.
Oh, you know what? It was very comforting. It just reminds me of home. I grew up with a lot of kids. We all peed in the pool. But it was great. It was great to get to know you a little bit more, and I look forward to many more great times.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. I can't wait to talk again.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. If you'd like to see more interviews with interesting artists like this, then make sure to like and subscribe.